Everyone. Today I plan to talk about our existence, our choices, achievements. Then, like asking a very uncomfortable question: who exactly are we on an individual basis? Okay, not on a collective basis. But if you are watching it, maybe it's a question for you: who are you to the core? Who am I to the core? All right. So, all of this comes from a very interesting thought that whatever that we do in our lives, okay, it can be anything, jobs, achievements, uh, anything, all right, literally anything. You can just name it, and like you can ask, why is it that we do it? What's the origin of that? Now, origin, when I say, it's basically, let's just say that someone's a director at a certain organization or a professor at a certain or university, and if you ask them, what are you, like, who are you, what are you, the first thing that we inadvertently say is that I'm a professor in so and so university, or I work as a director at so and so firm. Fair enough, I think that's a very normalized way of saying, because it signifies what you do. Like, if we go in the past, and if you asked some guy that what do you do, they would say that I'm a soldier at this king's palace, or I'm a cook at this king's palace, so on and so forth. So these are basically a sort of a tag that you have, because you work, you earn, and most of your time does go in doing that thing. But is it really you? Because you can be much more than that, but you can be absolutely nothing. When I say you can be much more than that, then we can come up with various things, such as I am good at heart, I am someone who is very hardworking, I am someone who is very diligent, I'm someone who perseveres no matter what the issue is, or no matter what the situation in my life is. Fair enough, that's a very solid resume, solid way of like looking at yourself. But again, if you were not all of that, then what you are? Then in a way you're nothing, right? And again, like, if I have to ask you that, okay, you are a director at so and so organization, but let's just say you're not that, then what are you? Then the person will be like, okay, then you start looking for various other things that you do. You might say that I'm an artist. Okay, you are an artist. Let's just say you are not an artist. You never made a painting. Now what are you? So when you start boiling down, or when you start, what do we say, separating all these things from a person's personality, then you come to a conclusion that what exactly are you? Like, you start asking yourself, then what am I? Because every thought or everything that I do is in a way inspired, it's in a way influenced. And the reason I say inspired, influenced, is because how exactly can something be our original thought if most of what we do is an inspired act? The video that I am making, I watch YouTube, I like how people speak, I want to do that, and I do it. So it's an inspired act in a way. I'm working in an organization that pays me well. How exactly is that an original pursuit? Maybe I saw someone who was in that role, who was getting really paid well, and I was like, okay, I'll try to, I'll try to do this. So again, it's an inspired act. I'm an artist, let's see. By the way, I'll just link the channel as well. But yeah, I'm an artist. How exactly is that an original pursuit? I am an artist because my father was an artist. Not by profession, but he was a good artist. He still is. And I learned it from him. Maybe I took it from him genetically as well. So that's also not original, because that came to me from my father. Okay. Now I might go a bit more creative, and I might say that I am a lover. When I love someone, I love intensely. I love passionately. I give my everything when I love. That's how I am. But where did I learn it from? There has to be something that tells us that, okay, this is how this thing is done. Maybe I learned it from books that I read. Maybe I learned it from a couple of movies that I have seen. or maybe I just learned it from my parents. Yeah, I mean, so again, this is an inspired act. Again, I'm not saying that all of these acts are false, all of these acts are just just a theatrical act that we are playing. No, they are imbibed in us. But if you really start looking for the core of that thought, the origin of that thought, you realize that okay, somewhere this thought has come from this thing. At times you might not even find an answer to that, and that's where you will start wondering that where exactly did it come from. Now, in order for us to not wander and start finding meaning for each and everything that we are doing, because doing that is really depressing for a person who thinks that all of that they do is very original. It's at the end of the day, it's their choosing, they are the master of their choices. If they are asked to sit and just think about it, they might actually start wandering in an existential sense. And it's depressing because when you don't find an answer, you are looking for that closure, right? Closure from yourself in this case, and you will never find it, because most of what we do is an inspired act. Like, let's say you're born with absolutely nothing, you don't know anything, all right, and then you start learning from your parents, you start learning things at school, you start learning things at various other institutions that you go, and through that learning you start making your own path, basically understanding that okay, I like this, I'll do that, I don't like this, I won't do that. When you are in school days, there are a couple of subjects that you learn, all right, you learn history, you learn geography, you learn science. You might end up having a teacher who is so inspirational, who is so interested in their job that they might inspire you to learn that subject in more depth. Okay, a teacher who is very interested in arts, who is very she's very much passionate about that subject, she'll teach you in such a way that you might actually end up loving that subject. I had a teacher who used to teach us history in that way, and I ended up loving that subject. Okay, but that's how it is, so there has to be some origin. So if at all someone says that I love history and I'm making a profession in that, maybe that person got inspired because of a teacher who was a fantastic teacher, who gave them a very good perspective of how history is, rather than just a black and white perspective that these are the events that happened, that's it, study them, put them in the exam, end of the story. But on the other hand, if a teacher mixes history with psychology, saying why this happened, how this happened, what's the history behind this person's psychology, and so on and so forth, that's when the kid will start seeing the actual nuance in the subject. Okay, now coming back to the topic. So if everything is inspired, then who exactly are we? Because somewhere the answer comes that maybe we are literally nothing. Like, there is a beautiful thing that I recently read, it's related to psychology. You are born and you are going to die someday, but you're not going to die immediately, right? Unless you have some health conditions, you're not going to die immediately. So you might end up living 60 years, 70 years, 80, 90. If you are really a person of legendary genetics, legendary body mechanism, you might end up living 100, maybe more. There are a couple of them who have lived more than 100 years, for more than 100 years, right? So something of that sort might happen. But what do you do in this time that you have? Even a year is very long. So what are you going to do in these 60, 70, 80, 90 years? You got to do something, right? So someone might pick up farming, someone might pick up this, that, various kinds of professions. You also study, you go to school, you go to college, you take a degree, you also take up a sport, you play it well, and all those things. But eventually, if you really boil down, I'm not going to dissect each and everything right now, but maybe this can be a task for you. Just think about someone really great in their profession, Ronaldo for that matter, or Messi, or maybe any actor, or it can be anything, any scientist. And if you really start asking why are they what they are, you might find that there was a person or there was a moment in their life that really inspired them to do what they are doing right now. like me making this video talking about this topic, trying to achieve some level of depth and coverage. Well, I picked it up from people who talk on psychology, people who talk on various podcasts. That inspired me. I loved that, and so I do that. Clearly, this is not an original thought, but I'm enjoying it. I'm able to pass my time with all these thoughts, with all these articulation, and so that's that. There is another quote that I read. Yeah, I mean, I feel when you are talking about such deep topics, or any topic for that matter, quotes really come in handy, if I may say. This quote is: success in any pursuit, in any form, is just a defense mechanism against the anxiety that's caused by existential wandering. Okay, now let's just say you are a successful YouTuber, you are a successful businessman, you're a successful student, you're a successful artist. So success in any pursuit is just a defense mechanism against the anxiety that you would face through existential wandering. If you started wandering in an existential sense, trying to understand what are you doing, who are you, that's exactly what I was trying to say throughout the whole video. So maybe that's just that. Maybe we are nothing. Maybe this is an extreme thought. Maybe this is also an inspired thought. But whatever that is, existential wandering is real. And wandering towards that is really depressing. And for a human to not get depressed, and for the system to really work, like system as in, there are things that are working around us. There is construction happening over there. There are cars moving. There are shops. There are cafes running. For all these systems, there are roads being built. For all these systems to work really well, a person has to be in a decent level of sanity. Sanity as in where they can sit and do the job with focus, rather than, asking, why am I doing this? What am I doing? And for a person to not ask that, maybe we have money, because to sustain in this system, you need to sort your kitchen. To sort your kitchen, you need money. And to get money, you need to work. And if you are getting money for what you're doing, maybe if that can be an inspired thing. Maybe money is what inspires you to do that. You really need to stop asking, what are you? Why are you doing that? All of these things get avoided. And that's that. I think by the end of the video, I myself wandered a bit. But that's just what it is. Oh, and one more thing before I wrap up. There is something that I thought I should really add. It might add value to your life. And that's, there are times, when we are very anxious, when we are very scared of anything. Okay, let's just say you're working on some project, the deadline is tomorrow, and you're very anxious that how is it going to get, how is it going to get done? Is it going to get done in time, or whatever for that matter? And that anxiety is real, because at this point your mind is looking at that work as a do or die thing. Like, what if it doesn't get done well? What if it doesn't happen well? What if my manager gets angry? And anything. Okay, so you are considering that from a point of view like this is a do or die situation. But a quote that I read recently, that if you are someone who overthinks, if you are someone who is anxious about things, who who is facing anxiety issues, maybe look at things from a fun perspective, that you are just doing things because what else would you do? So you have a project that you are working on, there is a deadline tomorrow. Okay, what else would you do? Let me just have fun, let me just talk to my colleagues, maybe do a bit of bitching. Whatever that works, whatever that keeps your mental state in a calm manner. I was actually going to add some technical definition of it, like sympathetic nervous system, this system, that system. But maybe let me just say, whatever that you do, the fun, the bitching, If it is keeping your nervous system calm, you might as well do it rather than seeing it from a do or die perspective. Now, I know it is easier said than done, but maybe just, start doing it, try doing it, and you might actually end up conditioning your mind to see things in terms of that, yeah, I'm just doing this for fun. I'm just doing it because what else would I do? I'm just doing it because I have nothing else to do, so I'm just passing my time by doing this project. You might end up conditioning your mind to think in this perspective, and maybe that would really help you. That doesn't mean you have to think from this perspective about everything, but wherever you feel you are getting anxious, just add this layer of fun, and yeah, I mean, actually, you might end up calming your nervous system down. Drink more water. Yeah, that's really important. But anyway, that's that. All right. So I was going through this video and I realized that there was a very important nuance that I missed out. Like there are a couple of instances wherein I have mentioned that we are literally nothing, because most of our thoughts are inherited, inspired. So what exactly are we? That's the whole idea behind this whole video, right? But one nuance that I want to add is, even though none of our thoughts, none of what we do is original, it's an inspired act, yet the decision to act on it, decision to act on any thought, decision to pursue something, that's very original, because that's our choosing, that's our that's our calling, if that is how I have to say. There can be a thought that is really good, there can be a thought that is really bad. Okay, now this is again a very subjective thing, a good thought or a bad thought, but let's just call it bad in terms of overall existence. Okay, like if someone is thinking about some heinous crime, then that's a very bad thought. But if someone is thinking about helping someone, that's a good thought. Now, even though both these thoughts are inspired, yet the decision to act on it lies with us. And that's an important thing, I think. Like, you can have all sorts of, inspired thoughts, but the only thing that you can control, which is completely yours, I can say, is that the idea to act on it. So instead of saying we are nothing, I can really just frame it as the self is less original than what we like to believe, but whatever originality it has, it is completely owned by the self, and that's really important. So yeah, that's that.